coming up on the Social Grenade podcast. Part 1 with Greg McCoy.
The first couple of years were very difficult. So as a general manager, hired in to dealership. So I call myself a rough-end carpenter. I like going in and building the rough-end stuff where it's really broken. I said, well, how's the training going? Well, it's kind of spotty, which is, I try to hop in there and you do it when I got free time. And you're complaining about your people not following the process. And the law of process, if you're not going to do it, you can't expect the other people to do it. At our age, and I won't say how old you are, but I'm 61. So
I'm 61. You're an asshole. That's what you are.
So I've become huge into AI. 61 years old, I'm talking about, I'm not running from it. I'm leaning into it. You follow me? Because it's not going away. So you might as well learn to leverage it. At 61, I am nowhere near at the point where I stop learning, because once I stop learning, you start dying.
Welcome to the Social Grenade podcast. Today, my very first automotive boss ever, the guy that literally loves it when I tell everybody he was right, Greg McCoy. Greg McCoy, this is my friend and mentor and my first boss in the automotive space. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
And one of the things that Greg also likes to point out all the time is that I'm older than him. So
that is true. Yes, you are.
We share a birth year, but I am a June baby and he's an August baby. And so I'm always a little bit older than him for a couple of months, but just that. One of the things that I love to tell the story about getting into the automotive space, and I was rocking a small social media career whenever Greg reached out to me and said, hey, we want to talk to you about social media, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So I go meet with him. And one of the things, I don't know that I've ever told him this side of the story, is at the time, I was still working at Jack Henry, and I was commuting an hour each way to go to work and sit at a company that had me doing nothing because they had such a shitty product, nobody wanted it, and I was an installer of that product. So I literally would just go to work on all my clients' stuff all day long, drive an hour back home, and then do the rest of the night too. So whenever I went and met with Greg, and he was like, "No, we need you to work here in-house," and I'm like, "No, no." My company can do the work. And he's like, no, you have to work here. I'm like, so I went home and I talked to my husband, and I'm like, I knew how much I made at Jack Henry. And I'm like, how much of a pay cut could I take? Cause I didn't know shit about automotive, to be fair. And so I didn't know like how much money there is in the automotive space. Right. And so, I was like, okay, well, I'm making this much at Jack Henry, but I'm going to be getting back 2 hours a day, cause I'm not going to have to be commuting to Monette, twice a day there and back. I said, so I could probably take a pay cut from there if I have to go to work at this dealership. And so the funny thing is I think I gave Greg like my income requirements, whatever they were. And I think, it was minimal anyways. And then Greg makes me an offer for more than I had asked for. And he's like, it just makes my math easier and I don't have to worry about it. It's this much, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's weird. That's just the weirdest thing I've ever encountered. And the fact that they gave me the freedom to still have my company while I was still serving the dealership was really good. And what I didn't know at the time, because I was arrogant and thought like I've learned the dentist office, the insurance agent, the shoe boutique, all of these things, I've learned their business and was able to run their social. And Greg was like, yeah, but automotive's different. You don't know shit about automotive. And I'm like, so, how much different could it be? But the wisest thing that he ever did for me, and I was kind of confused by it at first, was to make me a manager. And not because I needed a title, because I was the manager of nobody except for myself. But I got to sit at the table with the 12 department heads twice a week. And I have just enough testosterone raging through my body that I'm a solver, right? So when a problem comes up, my brain goes straight into how can I solve this with what I do? And so that was the MBA right there in automotive, was sitting with the best of the best in Joplin, Missouri. Like we have the best managers sitting around that table and learning from them firsthand what automotive was about, where the profit centers were, where the bonuses were, how did we get more money out of the same amount of cars sold, and all of those things helped me to understand automotive. And so for that education I got from Greg, like really catapulted my career. and helped me get that foot out into the automotive space. I had to ask him for referrals for a long time. Like, could you refer me to your friends? Can you refer me to your friends? Finally, one day I was like, I think you don't believe in me because you won't give me any referrals. He goes, it's on the printer. It's on the printer. Just go get it.
Yeah.
And so we've had, since 2014, we've been friends. We've been business verticals together. Like, we literally are in each other's atmosphere all the time. And so this is the greatest automotive mentor I've ever had and probably will ever have. And I know other people say that about you as well. Do you mean to be a mentor?
Do I mean to be a mentor?
Like, do you go intentionally, I'm going to mentor that person?
Well, yeah, I believe I do and have for my entire career, and I'll tell you why that came about. When I was first starting the business in 1985, I was selling cars in Kansas City Toyota store, and I didn't know nothing. I had come out of Bible college and got into the car business at 20 years of age, not knowing diddly about what I was getting myself into back in the 80s. But I had a gentleman by the name of Paul Lloyd, and Paul was a salesperson. Then he was a manager. He was an F&I manager, became an F&I manager. 9 months into my career, I became an assistant sales manager, closer was we called him back in those days. And what Paul did was started mentoring me into being kind of a backup F&I manager. And he wasn't getting paid to it, but he taught me F&I on his own uh, time, basically. And so I became an F&I manager, and they promoted me when we needed another F&I manager. I got the job. And so I remember going to Paul very clearly and said to Paul, I said, Paul, I mean, I owe you for helping me get here. He goes, no, you don't owe me anything. I said, yeah, something. I didn't buy you a drink or something. He says, no. He goes, just remember what I've done for you. You keep doing for other people. And my background has been ever since then. I love the car business. Been in the car business now. This is my 41st year in the car business. And one of the things that I tell people is, as you know, Robin, I believe the greatest book ever written in management and leadership is the New Testament, and not necessarily from a spiritual point of view, but from a leadership management point of view. You can look at it from that point of view. And I tell people this story all the time that, the gospel was spread around the world, not because of Jesus spread around the world. He only preached 3.5 years, and he spoke to thousands and thousands, but he mentored 12.
Mm-hmm.
And those 12, after his death and resurrection, as we're getting ready to celebrate this weekend, they went out and spread all his fame and the story. The gospel was spread by the 12 that he mentored.
Right.
So in the back of my mind, I've always believed that you should mentor people. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm sure they all weren't. He wasn't always happy with the disciples, and they weren't always probably happy with him. And I can tell you, as you can attest, most everybody I've mentored has called me I've been called a lot of things besides Greg McCoy and boss in 41 years. But what true mentorship does is layer through that. I'll say this: the greatest success. People ask me all the time. I got to share this again this last week. What is the definition of success for you in the automotive world in your career? And I say 1,001 times. It's the Robin Wilsons, the Tustin Ulriches, the Jamie Raineys, the Shane Merriams, the Tony Wattricks. These are people but I can go on and on. It's the people that I've had just a small part to do in their life that maybe helped them propel just a little further down the line. Not that they didn't do it on their own. You obviously are very sharp and intelligent. You did this, but maybe if I had just a little bit of help in there, that I pushed it just a little bit further. Because I also find when you mentor people, you get mentored back. You grow as much as, if not more, than the people that you're mentoring. So to be answered, people always ask me now, what about this car, that car? Robin, I don't know diddly about cars.
Right. Same.
What I do know is people and processes and those things and that's what I delight in, to see you at Social Grenade and see the stuff that's going on with Tustin, and I can go on and on. I think I have 6 people that at one point were salespeople for me now own car dealerships. So that I know of, and I'm sure there's more than that I don't know about. Anyway, that's so to
I
answer your
think
question.
about a social media post that I saw the other day when Tustin made it. He goes, "Today's the day," and like all of us are in there going, "I'm the greatest. I love the car business," right? Because how many times did we hear it, like managers meetings, Saturday meetings, whatever? Like that was the mantra, right?
That's right.
And that was so funny because it like just took me back to the upstairs room once again. That we spent so much time at. So you've been out of selling cars. You've been out of being a GM in a dealership since what year?
2018.
Right.
2018.
And so you decided to move into the position of going and really going how to, because your mastery is in turning dealerships around built by processes, right?
Correct.
People, processes, and product. Those are the three P's, right? And like something is missing in that equation, you're broken. And so you have helped like dozens and dozens and dozens of dealerships since you've left Roper Kia just by becoming a consultant for them,
Mhm.
and helping them with their processes.
Yes.
So let's talk about the first 2 years because I think those were a little rough for you.
Very.
Being self-employed is not what everybody thinks it is to
That's
begin with. Being an entrepreneur and going, holy crap, I eat what I kill. That's it.
right.
So tell me about your first 2 years.
Yeah, very interesting. Of course, I know you'll remember some of them because I would call you all the time and complain and say, "What in the world am I got myself into?" Uh, the first couple of years were very difficult. So, as a general manager, hired in to dealership. So, I've had lots of opportunities to own dealerships. Never wanted to own a car dealership. I always like what I do, which is going in and because I'm a builder. I take things from and I call myself a rough end carpenter. I like going in and building the rough end stuff where it's really broken, and then like the finish work. Like right now, you've seen what after I left, what Tussin has done with Roper's completely
Right.
beautified the place. You know what I'm saying? He's
Yeah.
taken a whole nother level because he's a finished carpenter kind of guy. He's really good at that stuff.
Totally.
I'm kind of the rough end. Let me get the rough end carpenter on stores. But as a general manager, I had a track record for 20 plus years of 100% success of flipping a dealership. Whatever dealership I went in, I flipped. I got it handled and got it working. The struggles I had when I first got into the consulting world, and I don't know what else to call it other than consulting. Usually, when we think of consultants, we think of somebody in the car industry. We think of somebody that's going to come in, tell people we're paying people too much money, cut their pay, blah 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 blah, all the things wrong. Well, I didn't want to have that persona because that's not really how I go about consulting. But for lack of better words, we called it consulting. But what I struggled was I was having about a 50% success rate with the dealerships I was working at first. And it was very difficult for me. And I remember reaching out to a couple of my mentors at the time, Tony Melito being one of them,
Mhm.
just saying, I'm struggling with this. I think I'll just go back and be a general manager of a car dealership because I have no problem doing that. I can get a job anywhere. And he said, why are you doing that for? And I said, well, it's just my mental frustration that I can't impact and make these changes happen because they won't do it.
I
Typically,
feel
what I would do is go into a dealership and I give them a 6-step process. They don't want to give them more than 6 steps. If they would take those 6 steps, they would see a turnaround after assessing their store and say, these are the 6 things I would focus on. And what I found out was I would have dealers that would do it and do great. Stores would take off. And again, it was a collaboration. It's not just, I don't have any original ideas. So I collaborated with people and got the right
right.
things, put the right thing, people, process, and products in place. And the ones that I was struggling with, I would go back. And what I did, I'd say,
The I'm a Car Chick podcast is a proud sponsor of the Social Grenade podcast. Listen now.
well, how about have you done step one? Well, no, we haven't started that yet. How about number two? Well, no, we've done that. How about number three? We've got a little bit of number three in there. We've done a little bit of number three. How about number four? No, we're just not ready for that. And it would go through, and I would find that the common thread was that everybody who was doing at least five of the 6 items, was having success that they could build on. The ones that were doing one, two, or none weren't and couldn't figure out. And so what happens in consulting world is a lot of times people will bring you on to validate what they think is right, and when
Mm.
you don't validate, they don't necessarily listen to change. And so what I look for is impactful changes that can help dealerships, and I work with struggling dealerships predominantly. I have some that are not. I have some that are really high performing dealerships that just need the ongoing coaching and mentoring that I do with their management staff. And that's
Don't
what
you feel like they're looking for that easy fix? Like, I'm going to pay him. I'm going to pay him this big amount of money, and he's going to come in and he's going to see the thing that's going to change it. And they don't understand that it is generally internal in your people. Like, they have to change who they are and how they do the things, or they're going to keep getting the same results, right? Like, and they're looking for that easy fix. They think it's magic what you do.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, no question. And I equate it to this, Robin. I equate it to, you know, just because you know the recipe. So I give you the recipe. If you don't get in the kitchen and start baking and follow the recipe, you're not a baker.
True.
So, and that's the theory of it. It's you can have all the recipes in the world. You can have all, and there's tons of books out there. There's tons of them that will tell you how. But if you don't put any kind of mechanics behind it, or like really get the pots and pans out and do it like the recipe says, or a lot of times people want to mess with the recipe and say, oh, I think this recipe, let's throw a little this in there, and then they don't know why their cake didn't rise the right way or whatever it may be. So, and again, it's not just my recipe. I collaborate with dealers that we
Right.
put it together and we agree this is the way we should do things, because I found a long time ago, it can't be my plan. It has to be their plan for them to really buy into it and believe it. But yeah, you're right. Those first 2 years were a lot of struggles. I had a lot of that. And then I kind of got to the understanding, again, with some of my mentors saying, you're thinking about this wrong. You can't hold yourself responsible if you're given a playbook and they're not following, they're calling their own plays. It's okay.
Right.
And so go ahead.
It's funny. I feel the same way, like with Social Grenade, right? Matter of fact, to the point where we just created a general manager SOP, because all these people will give lip service to the fact that, yeah, my people need social media. They need to be doing it. Our salespeople need to be doing that thing. And my whole team is behind it. Let's implement this thing. And then when we get to the accountability part and nobody is holding them accountable, and mind you, Social Grenade has a performance manager on my payroll that is trying to hold them accountable. They get daily text prompts reminding them what to do. They get 2 social media trainings per month on a Zoom call that they can pop on. Do they? No, nobody's making them get on those calls. And it always comes back down to the managers not doing what they said they would do, to the point where, like now, like when you see a dealer that's like still paying you money and only doing item number 5 and not the rest of them, how long do you keep taking their money before you go, dude, you're making me look bad. Let's get this off here. Don't tell anybody that I'm your consultant, that I'm whatever. And I feel the same way about that. We created this general manager SOP. And I told DeMarco, who does all of our demos and onboarding, I said, if the general managers, the general sales managers, whoever's in charge, do not agree to this right here, do not let them have Social Grenade. They can't have it.
Yeah.
End of story. Because we're just going to be in and out and fail. And so the thing is that for all of you that are listening, if you're a GM, a GSM, a DP, like if you are really going, we're going to change this year. This is the year that we're going to make some money. Because if you don't think this is money making 2026, you're exactly wrong. You're wrong.
That's right.
This is a year to make some damn money. And so the ones that are committed to going, look, my ears are open, my eyes are open. I'm opening my wallet to pay the price for the thing that I say that we're going to implement. And if they don't, move on, because there's 10 other dealerships that do want it and that will pay. And like, I mean, I'm just going to keep raising my prices. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm just going to keep raising my prices. We're in high demand. And it's one of those things, like, get in now if you want to, because I'm going to raise the prices again, because pretty soon you guys are going to get on board and you're going to be going, oh my God, oh yeah, Robin, we want that thing. Can we still have it for what you have? No, you can't. The price went up because you wore me the hell out.
Yeah.
But the first 2 years, and I know that because I watched your entrepreneur journey through that time too. I know that those were like, holy crap, learning that people don't hold themselves to the same standard that you do, right? And you think they do. They sell themselves to you.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do whatever you say, Greg. I'm willing to do it. And then you find out they're not. As long as it's comfortable and easy for them, they're willing to do what you say. But they don't really want success bad enough, like they want oxygen when they're being held underwater. They don't want it that bad, and that's how bad you have to want it.
Yeah. You almost have to wait. It's the old saying, you're right. You have to wait till that person's, if you're not careful, you try to save a drowning person too soon, they'll drown you too. So you have to wait till they're ready to give up and quit fighting.
Exactly.
I had a conversation this week with a manager and talking about what you're talking about, some of this stuff. And so one of the general sales manager at a Nissan store, and he was telling me, he goes, I'm having some problems with some people, and they're following through. They don't follow through with all their processes. They don't keep a timely manner. They're not making all their calls on a regular basis. I said, great. I said, how's that? Are you have training classes on that? Because I know this. I'm like, I had scoped him out, and as you know, Robin, I am a very process-driven person. We had training at 8:30 Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning at Roper Kia. We had our managers meetings from 10:30 to 11:30 on Monday and Friday every week, whether I was there or not, right?
Right.
People weren't late, were they?
Nope.
You get locked out. So my point being is, I'm asking this gentleman because I happen to know that I had helped him develop a training schedule and a training curriculum for his salespeople. I said, well, how's the training going? He goes, well, it's kind of spotty. Which is, I try to hop in there and you do it when I got free time. This is a fairly good sized store. And I said, really? I said, and you're complaining about your people not following the process. I said, if you haven't ever read 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which is one of my favorite books to read, it talks very clearly of the law of the lid and the law of process. If you're not going to do it, you can't expect the other people to do it. And we know this, Robin. And one of the reasons that at our age, and I won't say how old you are, but I'm 61. So
I'm 61. You're an asshole. That's what you are. No, I'm
going to say I'm 61. We already decided you've already discussed it older than me. But one of the things at 61, every year, Robin, every single year, I take what I call a topic that I'm going to better gain my understanding on. Last year was recruiting and developing and retaining employees. So I read books, podcasts, kind of understood. I found out that the biggest reason we're having a hard time retaining people right now is because our managers coming out of COVID got fat and lazy, and they're about 4 or 5 on the leadership manager scale. So all they can hire is 2s, 3s, and 1s because 7s and 8s aren't going to work for 4 or 5. So that was last year. The year before, I started my basic studies of AI and understanding AI and digital and social media marketing and how it impacts our business. So I've become huge into AI. As you well know, you and I have had some discussions about it. 61 years old, I'm talking about, I'm not running from it. I'm leaning into it. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's not going away. So you might as well learn to leverage it. This year, I'm really getting into vehicle acquisitions and inventory turns and how they impact dealers' bottom lines and why we should change our model. And I won't give that whole speech here, but the idea behind that is why we should turn our inventory and how we're more profitable doing that, even if we take smaller margins by turning the inventory faster and how the long-term gains are a lot greater. Here's my whole point of the story is, at 61, I am nowhere near at the point where I stop learning, because once I stop learning, you start dying. And you and I both know this, because I know you too, because you and I have done some studies together on stuff. But the reality is there's a lot of that's not happening. And so I guess I get frustrated because I think everybody ought to be at that level, or should be, especially if you want to play in this high level game. If you want to be a general manager of a store, you need to be proactive, not reactive to wait around what your boss tells you to do. You should be pushing ideas up. I never waited for any dealer that I ever worked for to tell me what reports I should do or numbers I should do. We did them. Jeff Frost never told us we had to have manager meetings, never told us we had to have training meetings. We did all that stuff because it was what we needed to do to be successful in our business. So, but it was real tough those first 2 years. It was very, very difficult developing this because my ideas of what I expected, I found out wasn't what's out there in a lot of cases.
It's funny. I told I had to take Shasta or go pick her up at Roper Kia this morning. She's getting her oil change, and I don't remember what conversation we were having. I said, my tombstone will say she's still learning. I literally told her that this morning. Like, it's going to be like not just right up to the end; it's going to be beyond the end, because then I'm going to be learning like what's on the other side of this. So it's literally just going to say she's still learning.
Yeah.
Because that's how I live my life as well. Like if I have a spare minute, I try to not waste it on fluff or whatever. Like I literally we created and hired our first AI employee, and she is the scary realm of OpenClaw, but we've got her on her own unit, and she doesn't have access to anything that she can destroy. And really, today I will spend probably 3 hours training one of my employees on how to use her. And I'm going to tell you, this is really cool. And when we first got her ready to roll, I gave her our standard operating procedure for our creative manager. And I said, this is what's expected of my creative director. I want you to read through the SOP. Here is the outline of one of our dealerships, because we do dealer docs on all of our dealerships, where they're located, what their hours are, if they have a tagline, what they're famous for, how long have they been in business, all of the things about them that make up the flavor of the dealership, not just that they're a Ford store. So I fed in the dealer docs of one of our stores, and I said, now, knowing what you know about the position and what you know about the services that we're offering this store, I need you to analyze all of this and tell me how much you can do versus how much you're going to need a human to do. And she took probably about 15 to 20 minutes, digested all of it, and then she came back with each line item. This right here, 85% is me, 15% is human. This part right here, 75% is me, 25% is human. And she broke down the different tasks of why. And she left all of the relationship stuff to the human. Like all of that stuff was all right here. And then all of the stuff that was what we would call $10 an hour work, which $10 doesn't even, I think, pay anymore. But what we call $10 an hour work, she was like, all of this right here, I can do all of this. And I say that because not so that I can downsize my employees, but so that I can upsize my clients. Because now my human can handle 4x more client base than she could before, because Lucy, who's my AI employee, can handle all of this mundane rote stuff already, and she doesn't need my help. She can do 18 tasks at once where another employee can't. Like I can have 18 employees telling her what to do, and she's going to keep doing it for all of them and still keep maintaining this thing. And so you're right on the AI side of people are not, at least, like if you knew how many people I follow on social, on YouTube, on whatever, like, and if I'm at the gym, I'm watching I'm watching a video on how to use Claude Cowork or Gemini or Manus AI or all of them, right? Every time I have an AI guy that works for me now too, a human, and he'll come into me and he'll go, hey, I need this one, blah, 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 to do this workflow that I'm building out. And I'm like, my login and password is the same for everything. He goes, oh, we already have that. I'm like, yes, we already have that. Like I already have all of it. So you just tell me just if you think that it's something you need, if you'll just try this login and password every time, you'll know whether I have it or not. You don't have to come ask me. And so it's so important that we are not learning it because of being fearful of what's coming, but we're learning it to go, how do we take this amazing, think about how afraid people were of the tractor.
The I'm a Car Chick podcast is a proud sponsor of the Social Grenade podcast. Listen now.
Oh my God, all of those people that are out there pulling the plows and doing the things are going to lose their jobs to the tractor, right? And then we were afraid of the assembly line. And then we were so many things that we've been afraid of, but like it's just progress. It's coming. How do we embrace it? And how do we learn how to dance with it to create more?
Yeah.
And that's
No, you're 100% right. It's the old story of the guy making buggy whips. Those cars are not, cars are nothing. And pretty soon you don't want to be the last person making buggy whips. I can very clearly remember, and of course, again, we're dating ourselves a little bit, but I was in the car business when the internet came out. You know what I'm saying? And I can very clearly remember a general manager I was at a group of stores in Kansas City, and I was a general manager of one store, and I was talking to the general manager of the Chevy store, and he was telling me, yeah, this internet, don't buy into that. That's all. Nobody's ever gonna buy cars off the internet. That's silly stuff. And I remember I had a consultant then. I've always had a consultant, by the way. If you remember, I had one the whole time I was at Roper, Tim Marvel, the whole time. I've always kept one because I always needed a mentor and a coach to go back to too, no matter how good I was in the business. But I encourage everybody that's listening to this, if you don't have one, find one that you can talk to that will give you constructive conversation. Tim's still a friend of mine. I talk to him all the time still. And but I remember very clearly Bob White was my coach back then, and he said to me, he said, don't listen to Bill. He's going to be the guy that's sitting at the bar, at 60 years of age, talking about the good old days. And if you think back back in our day, it was the double truck newspaper ad was the big thing. Some of the guys, some people listen to this will know what I'm talking about. Other people say, what's a double truck? But it was, the classified part of the Saturday paper was the biggest part, auto classification ads. So it evolves and changes. And I think where a lot of people get lost is that they don't try. I think one of the things that I've always liked about connecting with you also is that you challenged my thinking to always think ahead of the curve instead of behind in the back seat. Be out in the front of it and be part of that. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
I've made plenty of mistakes, but I don't second guess. Somebody asked me the other day, you never seem to second guess your decisions? I said, I never do. Now I go back and correct a lot of decisions that didn't work out. Very simple. We opened a used truck center, if you'll recall. Opened it for about 3 months. I said, okay, this is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my direct boss saying, oh, I don't want to close it. And his father-in-law tell me, That's why you're a good leader. You recognize that's not a good idea, and you close it up, and we stopped it. We cease and desist it quick. I think a lot of people are paralyzed for fear of thinking they're going to look bad, or that they're going to make a mistake. Good Lord knows I've made more mistakes than I've got right, but I've had enough rights that the
Mhm.
mistakes are forgotten about. And
Yeah,
I
well, they're
wouldn't.
lessons, though. They're not
Right.
mistakes,
That's
they're
right.
lessons.
That's right. There are things you've learned from and you grow from it. You're right. If you make a mistake and you don't learn from it, shame on you. You should always learn from that. But I'm sure you've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of people in this industry are afraid of what their peers or their boss is going to think of
Right,
them. They're going to think I'm stupid, or I made this mistake, or whatever. And so it paralyzes them into inactivity.
right.
And that fear,
My
I'm
my
fearful of that.
business partner, Beverly, right? Like, she's that. She's indecisive because she's so afraid of making the wrong decision. And I tell her all the time, I said, "Do you know that I can make 7 wrong decisions, and then the 8th one is perfect because I tightened the scope every time I made a shot, and it didn't land, and I made another shot and it didn't land." I said, "You're gonna wait all this time to make that decision, and when you finally make a shot, it's not gonna land, and you will have wasted all this time." We had this conversation this morning on the way home from the gym, because we're talking about her posting to LinkedIn, because she hates to post to social media, because every like or not like, or every like or somebody not even responding to it, she feels like it's a judgment on her. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it ain't. And you don't know those people, and they aren't coming to your funeral. I said, however, I said, now you have no data to know what will work and what won't work. I said, I post all kinds of crap, and then I go back and study it and go, this worked. Not so much that on LinkedIn. This one really worked on LinkedIn. Let me try this new format of doing a carousel on LinkedIn. And I'll like do all the stuff. I said, but now I have data. I know, yeah, not that thing. I said, but you don't know anything because you haven't even thrown a thing at it. You threw one thing, it went really well, and then you never posted again. I said, I have alarm that goes up. Matter of fact, I posted in my stories today. I have alarm that goes off every day at 8 a.m. and it says post to LinkedIn. And like, it's my reminder. I said, and I took all of my like 2 weeks worth of posts that I had made on LinkedIn. I screen captured all of them with the analytics below them, the likes, the shares, the whatever on the bottom of it. And I fed all of those images into AI. And I said, knowing what you know about me, because I've already created my AI persona. Obviously, I did that in early 2023. Knowing what you know about me, and now looking at all of the LinkedIn posts that I've made, analyze all this and tell me what I should be posting and what I should be veering away from. And it gave me like 5 pillars of content to post. The things that, like, this isn't hitting, quit doing this thing right here. And I was like, I told Bev, I said, you can't even do that because you haven't put enough content out there for AI to even help you with what's the right message, what's the wrong messaging to be using. I said, so you don't have any data if you aren't doing something. And just like you opening that car lot over on 32nd Street, you wouldn't have known shit if you hadn't done it and went, oh, that's not going to work. You could have sit back somewhere else and then went, no, like
Yeah.
we're, you know, and what if it was a huge success and you
Yeah.
still never tried it because you didn't know? But now you have the data and you go, yeah, that didn't work. No big deal. Move on with our lives, cut our losses. Everything is that. And I think about in my business, all of the different avenues that we've done and tried and moved on with, and like went, no, not that. I think it's a great idea at the time, and it ends up not being. But I don't take it personally. I just take it as a lesson. It's always just a lesson. I don't fail. I just learn from whatever was a plus or a minus in the column.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you completely. One of the things, I always tease myself about being a fat, bald, ugly guy. And I think if it's kind of a joke, but the reality of the matter is if you can take yourself as not so serious, then you don't worry about what the perception is of everybody else. As you well know, since I have not been in a dealership as an active GM anymore, you notice I've grown this beard out. You knew me back when I dyed it. I kept it short and dyed it brown. So I mean, if anybody goes to my website, it's still the same picture from back in that day. I haven't even changed the website in years. But I think I
You
hope
don't even know the story behind this, but when I had Drew do those pictures for you, and then he sent me the photos, and I said, and you'd had a little growth right here, so there was still some white right here in your beard where you hadn't hit it with the dye. And the only instructions I sent him back was take the horns off of his skull, get the Jack Daniels out of his eye, and put the brown back in his beard. And like, he edited those photos and sent them back to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Me and Jack, my buddy Jack and Daniels are still good friends to this day, so no doubt about that. That part hasn't changed a bit, and a good cigar every once in a while. But um, But you think about, and we've heard the story. I'm sure everybody has. I mean, what would Edison have done had he not flipped the light switch the 9,000th time?
Right.
Each time was just a little bit more of an advance. And I think that when people do that, and the reason I talk about teasing about myself is when you don't take yourself so seriously and you don't have to worry about this persona of having to be something more than you
Mhm.
need to be, it empowers you to take those risks. And quite honestly, it people respond to that. It's leadership, and when they
Right.
see that you're willing to take those risks, and then acknowledge when you need to make adjustments. That's all good leadership. You gain more respect than you'll ever lose. And but I think it's just fearful doing that at first. And I don't know when I started doing that. I preached my first sermon when I was 14, so I was in front of 1,500 people at the age of 14 years of age. So I've always been a gabber. But I guess I didn't think about failing then, or if I did, or sounding stupid, it didn't matter. So I guess I'm sure I've had those moments. I'm not trying to say I haven't. I think
Yeah.
everybody does have them, but I'm just saying, I think when you can kind of put that behind you, it's like right now people go, well, you do all this consulting, you go into all these big clients, and your beard's long. You got this. Oh, yeah, Santa Claus is coming. Yeah, I get it. So, but you get past that idea. And you know me, I'm very, very professional on everything I do. I still get my beard trimmed every month. But my my point being is when you can put that aside and just say, you know what, I'm going to do what I think's right, and I'm not going to worry if I don't get it done exactly the perfect way. Then you're empowered, and you start seeing you make better decisions, and you see that's where the growth comes. It's that paralyzing fear that creates this inactivity that, in my opinion, scares people to make the decision. People all the time ask me, how did you market yourself out there? I really haven't marketed our company. It's all been word of mouth, as you well know, over the last
I
20.
know
I know you've yelled at me for the years about this. I'm not very good at LinkedIn. I'm laughing a little bit about with
about Bev, about poor Bev.
because I don't do any of that stuff either, really a lot. And people can find me, but it's mainly because I have to, because I got so many clients on. But my point being is, it's been a word of mouth. But it's also, as you create that, and you went back to talking about mentoring. That's where your passion is. Your passion is to help dealerships. I've known you for a long time. Your passion is to help dealerships do well. It's not just a turnkey deal, like
No,
a lot of these businesses, and say, okay, here it is. Wish you the
good
best of
luck.
luck. Just
Good
pay
luck.
me. That's not what you are, and that's not what I am. And I think that's why we bond so well together and have been friends so long, is because we have that common trait. And so, if I could get managers out there, or even vendors or whoever, to understand that part of it, if
Mhm.
I've said it 1,001 times, I care when my dealers are successful, and I cry when they're not.
I take it personally. Like even when
Absolutely,
they're screwing it
absolutely,
up, I take it personally. I'm
absolutely.
like, why? Why can't I overcome even their stupidity or their resistance or their stubbornness? Why can't I get past that? And like I take it on like it's my fault. I'm like, it isn't. I've seen it work. It's funny because Jeremy Franklin and Scott Lehman, and it's so funny. So one time, and I tell the story all the time. I was doing ads. I was doing organic social and paid social for Jeremy Franklin. And Jeremy calls me one day and he goes, I think we need to turn our Facebook ads off. And I was doing them for Scott Lehman as well. And
Mhm.
that's when he had the El Paso store too. So, and those were, dude, those leads were like crazy.
Yeah,
And he says, I think we need to turn the Facebook ads off. He goes, they just don't work. And I said, that's interesting because, I have a friend of mine in Arizona that just bought a new plane. He's doing fine with them.
yeah,
And I said, so I told him, I was like, maybe it's your BDC. And this is how we even started a BDC. I said, maybe it's your BDC. Maybe they just won't treat those leads like what they are, which is top of the funnel. You have to give them 60 days walking them down to get those leads down there at the bottom of the
right,
funnel.
right.
And he's like, no, I think I got a good BDC. And I said, all right, well, let's test it out. You give me all of your Facebook leads. I will put a 2-man team together. Matter of fact, I hired that woman that was with Ryan Barth,
Oh, yeah.
Andrea, and maybe
I can't remember. Yeah, I know. I see her perfectly right now. Yes.
I know, yeah. So I hired her and I said, "Hey, call these leads for me." And like they were good leads. They just literally were working that process. But it's so funny because I tell that story all the time because one person knew how to handle them once they came into the BDC and the other one didn't have control of his BDC. He was listening to the guy that he thought was in charge was telling him the news and I'm like, that's not the truth. And so I took it so personally. I took them on and did them for free and I was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to call these for free and show you that this does work
Right.
because I have pride in what I do too. And if I could prove to him, he's not that he's wrong, but that this is right.
Stay tuned for part 2 with Greg McCoy.
I mean, I know your family expected you to be a preacher.
Yeah.
When did you know that, like, I'm not going to be a preacher?
1987. My dad was that old school, real tough. But I remember coming at rope a kid in my manager's office in 2015 telling me, he goes, I can't tell you how proud I am of what you've become as a man. And yeah, it was very touching to me.
I admire you from afar because, like, I'm like, I don't know how you go through all of that and then hold the balance of the economics of several dealerships at the same time.
For a long time, I didn't go to church for years, but I think a lot of that faith principle that you have, when I was 14, I was very young, and I prayed. God said you can have anything you want. So if you can have wealth, you can have it all, but he chose wisdom.